Shortly after the War of Independence, Israel Eldad, one of the leaders of the underground Lehi organization, wrote The First Tithe, but the work has only recently been translated into English. Before the State of Israel was born, Jews joined groups dedicated to pushing out the British occupier from the Jewish homeland. Among the commanders of one of these organizations was Israel Eldad, who was part of a triumvirate that led the Lehi.
My father was one of the commanders of Lochamei Cherut Israel, the Stern group, the Stern underground against the British. When he arrived in Israel, it was only natural for him to align forces with Yair Stern, who was later murdered, and they had to carry on from that point.
After independence, Eldad wrote The First Tithe, detailing his role in the struggle against the British and Arabs leading up to the establishment of the State of Israel. Recently, Zev Golan put out his translation of Eldad's seminal work.
I translated the book many years ago, which was fortunate because I was able to discuss the translation with Eldad himself.
And after the State of Israel was born, he felt that he has to sum up what was the process of this difficult labor of the State of Israel.
And given that people are wondering where we're going and why we're here and what's happening, the book is definitely something that people need now.
While The First Tithe focuses on the Lehi, it also touches upon the Irgun and the Haganah.
My father's attitude toward the established leadership of Haganah was exactly as my attitude toward Ehud Olmert. They only seek for power and not being a Zionist and not to fulfill the real goals of the Jewish people in the land of Israel.
He credited Avraham Stern, the leader of the Stern Group, the founder of Lehi, with the innovations in the Zionist revolution, with calling the British an occupier, with determining that they're an enemy regardless of what's going on in Europe. And he was happy that the Irgun under Begin came to these views, but he was sorry that they didn't come to these views earlier.
He was very disappointed from the fact that Menachem Begin hesitated so long before he started the war against the British administration here.
As for the Haganah, his view was even more critical, given that the Haganah spent a good part of the 40s chasing members of the Irgun and the Lehi rather than chasing the British. And so he was very much opposed to their attempts to stop the underground war against the British and their cooperation with the British.
The Haganah was actually hoping that the administration, the British administration, will eventually fulfill their obligation and create a Jewish homeland. My father thought that the whole moral issue and being Zionist is saying that nobody else but the Jewish people is entitled to be the source of right over the land of Israel.
But one of the revelations in the First Tithe is that Eldad reveals, which isn't discussed anywhere else, is that the Haganah and the Palmach planned a Bartholomew's Eve. They planned to take out, so to speak, to assassinate 300 to 400 members of the Irgun and the Lehi in one night in 47. They had a list drawn up. They knew where everybody lived. They had actually intended to do this. And it was only because of the intervention of Abba Hillel Silver and a couple of other people that this was actually prevented. So Eldad feels, and this is his theory, that the reason that they wanted to take such a drastic step of wiping out the people who were fighting the British was because it was a step to preserve their rule, their control over the Jewish community in Israel. Without wiping out the competitor, they were no longer relevant.
While not the primary focus of the First Tithe, Israel Eldad's belief in the need for Malchut Israel, the Kingdom of Israel, is reiterated in his book.
My father looked at the current regime in Israel, a democracy, and he couldn't close his eyes to all the faults of democracy.
To him, Malchut Yisrael meant a majestic realm of Israel. Today we would call it sovereignty.
In all his disappointment, he always felt that the state of Israel should serve as a bridge for the kingdom of Israel.
Now, the last article that Eldad wrote before his death was called A King for Israel. And he explained why we need a system that is led by a king, a strong government. But the basic idea is that we have to have a feeling of sovereignty.
After independence, to the great disappointment of Israel Eldad, those who had cooperated with the British became the heads of the new Jewish state.
And the Stern Group dissolved, and the Irgun dissolved, and the labor people who had been fighting them and who had been helping the British took over the country and led Israel down a path which was far from the revolutionary Zionism that the Stern Group had advocated, that Eldad had been preaching for all of his time in the country.